1 week before marrying Ives, his first love got divorced. He brought her to me to call off the engagement. "Bertha, I don't want to settle. You can try to be like her, but you'll never match her." I calmly walked away, cut my long hair, and put on my biker gear. I returned to my battlefield. He laughed with his friends, saying, "Who would like such a flashy woman? She's really not suitable for marriage." Until suddenly, a photo circulated in our circle. On a motorcycle, a slender, fair hand rested against the chest of a rich young man known for his wild reputation. His tattooed, muscular arm wrapped tightly around the woman's waist. Hormones spilled off the screen. "Ives finally called. Bertha, who is he?" The reply came from another man's lazy voice. Let me introduce myself, I'm her legal husband. I was at the bridal shop for my final fitting. In 2 weeks, I would be marrying Ives. Even though the wedding dress was custom-made, it felt a bit tight around the chest and waist. As I adjusted in the fitting room, I suddenly heard the voices outside growing clearer. "Hey, did you hear? Ives's ex, Emma, has divorced and returned to the country." I remember when she broke up with Ives 3 years ago, he was devastated. Exactly. If Bertha hadn't suddenly appeared and helped him through that dark time, he might still be stuck. Bertha was the most unapproachable princess. Who would have thought she'd actually become obedient for Ives? But now that Emma's back, will they still get married? They've already sent out the invitations. If they can't go through with it, that would be a joke in our circle. Once their voices faded, I took off the ill-fitting wedding dress. I called Ives. He didn't pick up, but amid the noise, I heard his voice. "Bertha is just a pale imitation, she can't hold a candle to Emma." Someone chimed in, "Bertha was known to be the hardest woman to win over, count yourself lucky." I've scoffed, "How hard to tame? She's been like a dog at my side for the past 3 years." "So, you're finally marrying her? Ives, you don't like her?" Ives replied coldly, "Would you like a dog?" Someone in the crowd asked, "Then why are you marrying her?" The air suddenly grew heavy with silence. After a moment, I heard Ives say, "It's interesting that she's become so obedient." I hung up, looking in the mirror at my long, straight black hair. And at the already washed-off tattoos on my arms and collarbone. I suddenly laughed. I played the obedient girl long enough. Ives didn't come home for a week. I put our wedding apartment up for sale. Every brick and tile in there was bought by me. I didn't want it anymore. After wrapping things up, I finally got a call from him asking to meet. He was the last one to arrive at the gathering he organized. When he walked in, he had the delicate and pitiful Emma following behind him. She looked a bit like me now. He held her hand tightly, as if afraid someone would bully her, putting on a protective show. The air went silent. No one dared to speak. Everyone's eyes turned to me. I stayed silent, looking down at the nearly worn-out red string on my wrist. I forced a smile. Until Ives brought her to me. "Bertha, I'm not going to marry anymore." I lifted my eyelids, calmly looking at him. "You want to call off the engagement?" He pulled Emma close, looking at her with adoration. "Emma's back. I don't want to settle. You can try to be like her, but you'll never match her. Do you understand? I don't love you." I nodded, "Okay." He looked at me incredulously, as if my calm response was unexpected. "You know our parents set this up. I loved Emma for 5 years and waited for her for 3, she's been hurt too deeply. I want to give her a home." I grew impatient, grabbing my bag at my side. "All right, are you done?" Ives paused, silent for a moment before continuing, "I'll handle things on my side, you take care of yours. We won't be getting married next week." "Fine." I stood up and walked out. At the door, Ives suddenly called out, "Bertha?" I turned back. He still stood there, but I noticed his other hand tightly clenched at his side. "Is there something else?" He frowned. "Don't you have anything to say to me?" I thought for a moment. I actually wanted to say, "I envy you. Your first love can still return, while mine cannot." In the end, I simply said, "Wishing you a happy wedding." As I closed the door, I heard voices behind me. "No way? Is that all Bertha's reaction? Ives, didn't you say she loved you to death? Why didn't she make a scene?" "Shut up." Ives's voice was filled with irritation. I didn't look back. I should have realized, no matter how much he tried to imitate her, he wasn't her. How could he bear to leave me and look at someone else? Afterward, I walked into a hair salon. I cut off the long hair I had kept for 3 years. When the neat blue short hair emerged, I felt like I was becoming myself again. On my wrist, I got a new tattoo of letters, Jene Recul Jamais. In French, it means I never back down. Finally, I went to the shop I hadn't entered in 3 years. Jerry, please bring my bike out. A muscular guy with his shirt off walked out of the shop. He looked at me in surprise, his eyes red. After a moment, he came to his senses. Bertha? Yes, it's me. A tall boy, looking me up and down, stumbled over his words. What are you doing here? I glanced at the 2 bikes prominently displayed. One white and one black. I smiled. They're still here. Bertha, I polish these 2 every day, they're just like new. You can hit the road anytime. Where are you going? Should I tell the others? I shook my head. Just bring it out, I want to ride alone. Okay. As I hopped on, a long-lost feeling surged in my heart. I hadn't ridden a bike in ages. It felt like if I didn't ride, I could forget what happened that summer. I looked back at the black Kawasaki, thinking of that person. Jerry followed my gaze, his eyes reddening. I've been waiting for Kyle too, his bike is here. I haven't touched it. I thought one day, they would hit the road together again. Bertha, it's been 3 years. Will you wait for him? I paused slightly. So, 3 years have passed. They say if you listen to the clock goes backward 1,000 times, you'll see the person you miss. I've finished it, but why hasn't Kyle returned? I turned to him, feeling a bit teary, yet still softly comforting him. It's all a lie. The dead cannot come back. Then I started the bike. Jerry doesn't know, I've already listened to it 10,000 times. I raced to the mountain top, looking at the view below. I shouted, Kyle, I've listened to your advice and prepared to get married. Why aren't you back yet? Tears streamed down my cheeks. You liar, you said you wanted to see me in a wedding dress. In the end, I can only wear it for you. But it doesn't fit. I've been obedient, eating and living well. Why doesn't it fit? Can you hold me? The wind is strong, and I'm so tired. At the empty mountain top, there was an endless starry sea. The moon cast a gentle light over the land. Everything became tender. Behind me, I heard rustling sounds. I turned around suddenly, but there was no one. It was just the sound of insects chirping. I composed myself and headed down the mountain. But suddenly, I noticed the black Kawasaki was gone. Jerry! I hurriedly got off the bike and called into the shop. Where's the bike? Who took it? A honk sounded behind me. My heart raced faster than ever. For some reason, tears streamed down my face. I slowly turned around, gently touching my chest. Under the dim streetlight, Kyle leaned against the motorcycle, dressed in black, with his defiant and wild eyes as always. He raised an eyebrow at me. My little spicy pepper, why are you still such a crybaby? It felt like time had rolled back to the first time I met him. My parents were fighting because I wouldn't listen to them, and they gave me a good beating. All I did was ask them to stop tormenting each other and get a divorce sooner. What was wrong with that? I ran outside and hid, crying alone. Halfway through my tears, I heard a lazy laugh. Whose little firecracker is hiding here, crying? Kyle propped his hands behind his head, slowly sat down next to me, and handed me a tissue. Crying alone is too lonely. Since you don't know me, I can be a quiet listener. That year, we were both 15. I didn't tell him why I was crying. But he stayed with me for the whole afternoon. Later, I got to know him, the notorious bully from the neighboring school. I heard he was fierce and ruthless. And he was a love child, without a dad. Maybe it was fate, we slowly got to know each other, and he would take me to the hilltop to watch the stars. He introduced me to all his friends. The love I didn't feel at home, he showered me with. He also told me to be true to myself. Because some people just like me for who I am. Every time I argued with my family, he would appear, gently hug me, and let me vent my emotions. He would also take revenge on those who spoke ill of me, who said I wasn't a good girl. He said, Bertha, no one can define whether you're good or bad, and no one can judge you. You are who you are. I would defend him against those who called him a love child. I would quietly sit by his side when he didn't want to talk, telling him he wasn't alone. I said, "Kyle, you don't have to be a certain way, just being you is meaningful." They all said he was such a rebellious and cold person, but only in front of me did he become gentle. Like two people floating in the deep sea, finally finding their piece of driftwood. Kyle and I grew closer. After graduating high school, we fell in love. That night, our group rode bikes to the hilltop, cheering for our coming of age. Then he quietly took my hand from behind everyone and pulled me along. In the vastness of the world, there was only the sound of our breathing. Kyle, doesn't this feel like eloping? I still remember that summer. With the fullest moon, the brightest stars, and the sweetest chirping of cicadas. And the most sincere eyes of youth. Under the starry sky, we embraced and kissed. It felt like that moment was eternal. Kyle, you're finally back. I've missed you so much. My voice trembled, and my body was slightly shaking. Why are you crying? Come here, I'll hug you. I rushed over. But what I saw was Jerry pushing a bike over. Bertha, why are you crying? Isn't it what Kyle said? His bike never gets left alone, so I thought since you took his bike, I'd start his up a bit. Oh, so that was just my imagination. I turned away and wiped my tears. Some say that if you encounter someone too stunning in your youth, anyone you meet later will just feel like settling. Maybe I was just too obsessed. For the past 3 years, I hadn't faced reality and still hoped for a miracle to happen. When I got back, everyone was waiting for me. Seeing my blue hair and biker outfit, my mom was furious. Look at what you've become. How could you look less like a girl? No wonder Ives doesn't want you. I stood at the door, suddenly not wanting to go in. As I turned to leave, my dad called out to me, "Where do you think you're going? Get back inside. Call their family and apologize, just say you won't marry anyone but Ives. The wedding invitations have already been sent out, there's no way not to marry. And get that awful color off your head. Their family doesn't like flashy women, understand?" I slowly walked up to them. Smiling, I said, "Why should I apologize? He's the one who wants to give his ex-girlfriend a home, he's the one calling off the engagement. What's wrong with me helping him?" My dad stood up and slapped me across the face. "You're insane." He's confused, but that doesn't mean you can be. Don't you ever think? Can their family let a divorced woman in? My face stung. He continued, "So what if he has a woman on the side? In this circle, who doesn't turn a blind eye, as long as it doesn't threaten your legal wife status? Why are you so angry?" I gently touched my face and forced a smile. "You two can play around, but I'm sorry, I can't do that." My dad was furious, his chest heaving, and he grabbed a cup from the table and threw it at me. "One love child dies and you're still acting like this. It's been 3 years, are you planning to stay a widow forever? Bertha, I'll say it again, this marriage cannot be cancelled. Even if you die, you have to die on their side." I couldn't dodge the cup, it grazed my face and left a bloody mark on my brow. In a daze, I remembered some past events. After Kyle fell off the cliff in that competition, I fell into severe depression, my wrists were covered in scars. When the servants found me and brought me back, my parents said I was just being dramatic, that a rich girl should be grateful for her life and couldn't get sick like this. They didn't understand me, nor did they care, because when I was very young, they both had their own families outside. I didn't understand, if they didn't love each other, why did they have me? Until the company encountered a crisis, they wanted me to marry into a wealthy family. I didn't want to, and they threw Ives's photo at me, telling me to stop pretending and to go die if I really didn't want to live. I lowered my head and caught sight of that photo. For a moment, I thought it was Kyle who had come back. It looked so much like him. Especially those eyes. It was like a dying person clinging to a lifeline. I agreed to meet. Even for their sake, they said their family didn't like flashy women. I obediently dyed my hair black. I wanted to stay by his side, even just to look at that face would be enough. But unexpectedly, Ives took the initiative to keep my contact information. He made the first move, and so we got together. Later I realized he was just using me as a stand-in. We were just fulfilling each other's needs. So he asked me to grow my hair long, and I did. He said he liked me in long white dresses, and I wore them. He said he didn't want me to smoke, and I quit. He even asked me to stop riding my bike, and I listened to him. To others, the wild me had become obedient for him, loving him to death. Even Ives thought so. What could I do? Without that face, I wouldn't have the courage to live. So even if he repeatedly challenged my limits, I accepted it. Because every time I saw him, I remembered Kyle was still by my side, never leaving. Until his white moonlight came back. His eyes were only on someone else. That's when I woke from this dream. No matter how similar they looked, Ives was not him. Before sleeping, I unexpectedly received a call from Ives. Your parents called my parents. I remembered that later, I had posted the only motorcycle photo I had taken in 3 years on Facebook. One of my friends commented, "So cool." Not long after, Ives commented under that. Who would like such a flashy woman? Definitely not suitable for marriage. So I interrupted him, "Don't worry, I don't want to marry either." I just felt a bit regretful that I'd never see the deep affection in his eyes when he looked at me again. Ives fell silent. Then he laughed again, his tone harsh. "Bertha, if you can tolerate Emma, I can reluctantly marry you. But don't expect me to love you, understand? Anyway, it's just to deal with the parents. You love me so much, and your family is counting on mine, I can help fulfill your dream." I touched the string of letters on my wrist and slowly smiled. "Ives, if you really want to marry me, does Emma know?" He didn't respond, just some hurried breathing on the other end. "Ives, I know you're using me as a stand-in for Emma." "How funny, I'm doing the same. Do you know when you look the most like him?" I squinted playfully, remembering Kyle's carefree smile. "It's when you don't say anything and just look at me. Even if you're just looking through me at someone else, it doesn't bother me at all. Just seeing his face makes me happy." I took a moment to gather my thoughts and said softly, "So, even if you make me do a lot of things I don't want to, I can't really stay mad at you. But like you said, no matter how much I learn, I can never be her. You may look alike, but you're not the same person. So, being each other's substitutes, I neither owe you anything nor love you. This marriage just—" I didn't even finish my sentence. Ives abruptly hung up the phone. I took 2 sleeping pills. It's only in my dreams that I can see Kyle again. Back to those 4 years when we loved each other the most. Do you understand? Holding hands with the person you like, strolling down the street, sipping drinks, watching a movie. Even without talking, just quietly looking at each other, the air feels sweet. Finally, we could ride the motorcycle we both loved, racing through the world together. Jerry said, "Kyle and Bertha are the most perfect couple I've ever seen. Standing there, they look just like the leads in a romance movie." I praised him for his way with words and encouraged him to say more. Kyle leaned against the bike, hands in pockets, casually watching me joke around with our friends. Later, we went to the same university and started a racing team together, entering competitions. Honestly, he was incredibly charming. Even after class, girls would slip him love letters. To keep me from getting jealous, he bribed the campus radio station to read out love letters he wrote for me every day. Hearing them made my skin crawl, and he would hold me tightly, laughing, "I'll never get tired of this. I'll write to you every day from now on." Many people thought we didn't look like a couple that could last long, but who would have thought we'd be together for 4 years? Eventually, my parents found out about my relationship. That day, they called me home and flew into a rage, demanding I break up with this wild child. I refused. My dad threatened to hit me with a stick. I raised my chin defiantly. "You both have your own families now. You haven't cared for me all these years, so why do you suddenly want to interfere with my life? I've really had enough of your hypocrisy. What am I to you? An object or a commodity? I'm your father. I gave you life, and you can never escape from that." My mom chimed in, "I've spoiled you. I let you get too big for your britches to say something like that. Was it that wild child who taught you?" Just as the stick was about to hit me, Kyle appeared and saved me. He pulled me behind him. "All these years, you never cared for her. She didn't receive your love, but you expect her to repay your kindness? Why should she? Why should she obey you blindly? This is my beloved girl. You don't love her, but I do. You don't want her, but I do." That day, he took my hand and we left that house. We didn't say anything, but he held me tightly all night long. We promised we would get married after graduation. But as graduation approached, I started being followed for no reason. Sometimes, a flower pot would even fall from above while I was walking. Kyle became a bit distracted too. One day, he suddenly asked me, "What would you do if I were gone one day?" "I'd die with you." I wasn't joking. Before I turned 15, I had no family, no friends. I was rebellious and didn't see the point in living. After I met him, he became my salvation. I couldn't imagine how I would cope without Kyle. "Don't," he sighed. "Even if I'm not here, you have to live well, find someone who loves you, get married, have kids, understand?" I tightened my arms around his waist. "What are you talking about? The only wedding dress I'll wear will be for you, I won't marry anyone else." "Stop being willful." "I'm serious." "Why so serious? Are you secretly keeping a dog on the side?" He cleared his throat and gently brushed my hair. "My princess, how could I? You wouldn't dare. Otherwise, I'd just get married randomly, and you'd have to chase me back." "That was just in jest." He chuckled lightly. "If one day you really marry someone else, I'll come and steal you away." Kyle said he'd win a race for me, presenting me with a trophy and a ring, proposing to me in front of everyone. But unexpectedly, during that race, he never came back. The dream turned into a misty forest. All I remember is the deafening cheers. A sweltering summer. And the news flashing on the big screen of him falling off a cliff. In that moment, surrounded by flames, all sound disappeared. "Kyle." I woke up suddenly, my back soaked with sweat. My phone rang, it was Jerry. "Bertha, there's a race on the mountain road this afternoon. Everyone's going, are you coming?" "Sure." It's not my usual scene, but I think I need to start looking forward again. It's just a small competition, and there's an international one the day after tomorrow. Want to join? Levi and the others have already gone. I leaned against the car and lit a cigarette. "Yeah, I'll go too, I need to practice for the race." I heard a lot of famous racers will be there, especially an international competitor who performs exceptionally well. But sadly, he never takes off his helmet, so no one knows what he looks like. If I see him, I'll ask for an autograph. I exhaled a puff of smoke and teased him, "Look at you, so eager. Just wait until I win a trophy for you next time." Jerry's eyes glistened. "Bertha, seeing you like this makes me really happy." I patted his shoulder. After finishing the last puff, I turned and saw Ives. Our eyes met, and I could clearly see his gaze brightened. "Bertha?" I didn't plan to respond and stepped on my cigarette. He grabbed my wrist. "Let's talk." He stood in front of me, blocking the sunlight, creating a shadow. I quietly looked at him, so similar to someone else. What a pity it wasn't Kyle. "Don't look at me like that." I've suddenly raised his voice. "Bertha, how dare you lie to me?" He seemed very angry, but I didn't understand why. I simply pulled my hand away and slowly said, "Ives, you should be happy, shouldn't you?" Ives's brow furrowed deeper as he blocked my path, gritting his teeth. "Am I supposed to be happy being treated like a substitute? Bertha, do you have a conscience?" His eyes were filled with anger. "No wonder every time you look at me, you have that lost and found expression. No wonder you often stare at me, envious even in tears. I thought you really loved me. I even agreed to the suggestion of our family's arranged marriage. I feel like such a fool for believing it." I listened quietly until he finished, then spoke. "Ives, aren't you treating me like a substitute too? Your white moonlight is back. You don't have to keep drinking poison to quench your thirst for me. The substitute game is over." He took a step closer, and I felt like he was about to crush my shoulder. So I instinctively took a few steps back. "Even if I'm just a substitute, isn't your good behavior meant for me? Would you behave well for him?" After thinking, I seriously told him, "No. It's just that if I really get married, I hope he keeps his promise to steal me back. It's also my last obsession." "Did you ever really like me?" I looked up and calmly said, "You don't like me, and I don't like you. Isn't that fair?" "I like." He hesitated, his brow furrowing deeply. "Of course, that's unfair. Bertha, you're just a dog by my side. There are only 6 days until the wedding. You'll regret it. I won't regret it, I said. I finished packing my bags. I boarded the flight to Beijing. There were still 4 days until the wedding. My parents refused to cancel the ceremony. They still held out a glimmer of hope that I could reconcile with Ives. I looked down and touched the bracelet I had worn for 7 years. I thought about how, after the competition, I would completely sever ties with that seemingly perfect family. I finally understood that some parents just don't love their children. I made peace with myself. Jerry picked me up at the hotel. I heard that competitor is staying here too, we might run into him. I laughed. Are you a fan? Jerry scratched his head. I just think some of his techniques are very similar to Kyle's. My heart skipped a beat. Jerry changed the subject. Bertha, let me take you in. The other drivers are really missing you, they'll be so happy to see you at the race. We were arriving just before it started. At the venue, I indeed saw many familiar faces. These were the people who had followed Kyle. They all came from tough backgrounds, and Kyle had pulled them out of their despair. Then they found a lifelong pursuit. There, in the black racing suit, on the black bike, Jerry pointed at someone. It was a bit far away, so I couldn't see clearly. I looked over. Coincidentally, the person turned his head, still wearing his helmet. It felt strange. A strong sensation washed over me. My hand suddenly trembled, and my heart felt like it was about to leap out of my throat. The race is starting. Bertha. He was the first to take off. Then he shot ahead, racing as if he had no care for his life. I suddenly remembered what Kyle had said 3 years ago, before that rally race. He said he would propose to me with the championship trophy in hand. I stared at the dark figure speeding across the track, my heart aching and swelling. I thought I needed an answer. No matter who he was, I wanted to see the face beneath the helmet. I pulled Jerry and rushed to the podium. The minutes of waiting felt more agonizing than ever. It was like waiting for a ship at the airport. I knew the outcome, but I still held on to hope. Finally, the big screen showed him crossing the finish line, winning the championship. He had a foreign name. I watched as the camera switched angles. He brought his index and middle fingers to his lips and threw a kiss into the air. In that moment, it felt as if that kiss landed on my face. A wave of heat washed over me. He slowly made his way backstage with the staff. I used my connections to get in as well. I walked up to him. I knew it was rude. But I really wanted to see him. I asked him in English if he could take off his helmet. He didn't move, just stood there in front of me. Even his build was so similar. My heart raced uncontrollably. Finally, he spoke. Sorry. 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 At that moment, I felt a chill around me. So it was true, wasn't it? I recalled that summer when Kyle asked me what I would do if he were gone. I said I would die for him. But I didn't die. I lowered my head, my lips trembling. Finally, I had let go of all my hopes. I turned to leave. But suddenly, someone grabbed my wrist. I looked down, my gaze moving from his well-defined fingers to the veins on his wrist. He was wearing a bracelet, just like mine. It was already worn and faded. In that instant, my mind went blank. A tear dropped onto his hand. I watched as he took off his helmet with one hand. And then, the face I had longed for appeared before me. Even the curve of his lips was exactly the same. Kyle. It was my Kyle. I missed you so much. But when I opened my mouth, no sound came out. I finally understood what it meant to be so overwhelmed that I couldn't speak. 3 years had passed, but he seemed unchanged, still the person in my memories. And yet, somehow different. Otherwise, why was my vision so blurry? Kyle stood in the spotlight, bathed in a golden glow, smiling at me. He curled his lips in a grin. My little Pepper, what's wrong? Don't you recognize me? I couldn't hold back anymore and threw myself into his arms, crying uncontrollably. Why did you take so long to come back? I heard my little Pepper is getting married, and the groom isn't me. I came back to steal my bride. He held me tightly and kissed my hair. But I could clearly hear a slight tremor and choked emotion in his voice. I held on to him tightly, letting my tears flow. I was terrified that the next moment I would wake up and realize this was just a dream, an illusion. I was so scared. So even if it was an illusion, I hoped it would let me wake up a little later. Sorry, I promised to propose to you with the championship trophy, but I'm 3 years late. Do you blame me? I shook my head. I didn't blame him. As long as he came back. I didn't want anything else. I just wanted him. At that day's awards ceremony, Kyle presented me with the trophy. And a long overdue ring. I looked at him from below the stage. Now, he and the man from years ago overlapped. A promise 3 years late. Finally, a perfect ending arrived. That night, we turned all our years of longing into actions. Again and again, we claimed each other amidst sweat and tears. Even when we were exhausted, we didn't want to stop. Only in his embrace did he slowly tell me what had happened over the years. It was quite dramatic. He and Ives looked so alike because they were indeed brothers. Kyle's mother was also from a wealthy family and had fallen in love with Kyle's father. But Ives' mother interfered, drugging his father and using her pregnancy to secure her place. Kyle's mother couldn't tolerate the betrayal and reluctantly left, only to discover she was pregnant. Later, Ives' mother found out about their existence and secretly suppressed them, which eventually led Kyle's mother to think about revenge. So, she controlled Kyle, sending him abroad to take over his uncle's business and hurt their family. Kyle didn't want to go because he had me. So, Kyle's mother targeted me. I suddenly remembered the inexplicable stalking and realized the truth. Kyle was scared and begged her not to hurt me. His already obsessive mother set a condition: to protect me, Kyle had to leave. So, a staged death was devised. Kyle was taken abroad. For 3 years, he slept only a few hours a day, just to see me sooner. His voice trembled slightly as he said, "You don't know how much I missed you." He spoke as if he were telling someone else's story, recounting what had happened to him over the years. How he learned to manage a company from scratch, how he proved himself, and how he escaped his mother's control. He didn't dare to see me or contact me to protect me. He finished telling his story in just a few minutes. But I knew how hard those days had been for him. How much effort it took for him to stand in front of me. I held him tight. He held me just as tightly, as if he wanted to fuse me into his very being. Every time I missed you so much I felt like I was going crazy, I would stab my wrist with a pen. I told myself to hurry, to succeed quickly, or my girl would lose patience. I promised her I would win a trophy for her on the track. I can't go back on my word. I said I would marry her. She's so silly, she would wait for me. So I studied like crazy and slowly broke free from her control until I could finally stand in front of you. I understood. Tears flowed and dried, like releasing all the suppressed emotions from those years. He gently caressed my face and pressed a tender kiss on my forehead. "My little Pepper, will you marry me?" 3 days to the wedding. I took Kyle to get our marriage certificate first. Watching the embossed stamp pressed between our 2 photos, I smiled and then cried. Kyle hurriedly wiped my tears, saying, I'm sorry. I'm late." I gently shook my head and wiped my face. "As long as the ending is you, it's okay to be late." At the same time, a photo suddenly circulated within our circle. On a motorcycle, a slender, fair hand rested on the chest of the hottest racing champion at that moment. His tattooed, veiny arm wrapped tightly around the woman's waist. The hormones practically spilled off the screen. This was taken by Jerry and the others right after the race that day. Somehow, the photo got out. Even people in our circle saw it. In the group chat, someone posted the photo, sparking intense discussion. "Doesn't this woman look a lot like Bertha? No way, isn't Bertha the one with long black hair and a classy dress? How did she end up with blue short hair and a crop top? This looks like Bertha's early appearance. The guy in the photo kind of looks like Ives. Oh, when did Ives start racing? It's not Ives. Seems like a foreign racer. Honestly, they look great together. But didn't Ives just drink with us yesterday and say that Bertha would regret not being with him before the wedding? So, Ives thinks Bertha would be lost without him, but it turns out she sees him as a backup." I was trying on the wedding dress that Kyle had specially ordered and airshipped for me when I received a call from Ives. "Bertha, who is he?" I was adjusting the hem, and it was Kyle who picked up. He looked at me, smiled casually, and said in a lazy voice, let me introduce myself. I'm her legal husband. I had arranged for everyone to meet up on the winding mountain road. Riding our favorite bike, we rushed to the mountaintop together. Everyone was laughing and crying. He held my hand tightly from behind. It felt like we were back in that summer when we were 18. Little Pepper, how about we elope together? Tears welled up in my eyes. This time, I grasped his hand and ran into the summer night. I stood on my toes to kiss the corner of his lips. But he took the lead, gripping my waist tightly and leaning in for a deep kiss. The familiar, soft, and crazy feeling couldn't compare to the joy of having him back. But it made up for our passionate, fiery, romantic, broken, and unfinished youth. I didn't know if we could be each other's redemption. I only knew that in every rush toward each other, love is the greatest truth. We partied at Jerry's place until dawn, barely falling asleep. When I woke up, everyone was sprawled out in corners. I loved the atmosphere right now. I planned to go out for some fresh mountain air. But I unexpectedly saw Ives. He was slumped under a utility pole, surrounded by cigarette butts and empty bottles. I didn't know how long he had been there. I didn't know what he intended to do. I didn't want to see him. But he stepped in front of me first. Bertha, we're getting married. I didn't know what game he was playing. I took a step back and raised my hand. Ives, I'm already married. Looking at the ring on my finger, he froze in place. You married that racer? I nodded. He suddenly got angry. How can you be so reckless? You've only known each other for a few days, why does he get to? He paused, his tone softening as he quietly looked at me. I haven't cancelled the wedding with my family yet. We're still holding the wedding in 2 days, okay? I shook my head. The wedding isn't cancelled, I'm just switching partners. In an instant, he stood there dumbfounded. After a moment, he smiled. If that racer knew you see him as a backup, he'd definitely divorce you. Bertha, stop messing around. Marrying me is your best choice. Ives didn't know that Kyle was my longtime love. Don't worry, we won't get divorced. At that moment, Kyle's voice came from behind me as he wrapped his arms around my shoulders. He pressed a kiss to my lips. Because those who betray will go to hell. Looking at Ives' face that closely resembled Kyle's, he said nothing and walked away, lost. 2 days before the wedding. Kyle and I were busy revising the guest list. We were only inviting our closest friends for a wedding that belonged to us. In the midst of the chaos, I unexpectedly received a call from Emma. On the other end, she sobbed softly, "Can you meet Ives? He drank himself into alcohol poisoning and ended up in the hospital." I was a bit confused. What did that have to do with me? Emma's voice trembled. I always thought Ives was really waiting for me, that he truly loved me. I thought when I returned, he would stand firmly behind me. For that week, he did stay by my side, but he was constantly looking at his phone. I knew he was waiting for your call, but you didn't even check on him, so he brought me to see you, saying he was canceling the engagement, but really, he was trying to provoke you. But you left calmly. You don't know how crazy he went after you left. I finally understood, he actually developed feelings for you in this backup game. Knowing you were with someone else, he kept drinking, muttering your name. I frowned and interrupted Emma. I don't want to hear this. I don't love him. Not even once did my heart waver. He doesn't love me either, he just can't accept not being in control of the relationship. Then I hung up. The day before the wedding, Kyle boldly acquired his family's company. Only then did they realize. They had a bastard child outside. However, instead of fighting for inheritance, they teamed up with his mother for a lethal strike. That day, there was heated discussion about how Kyle looked a lot like Ives. At that moment, Kyle announced he would marry his childhood sweetheart, with the wedding set for the next day. Everyone finally connected the dots. That racer was him. He was my long-lost first love. My parents were thrilled, thinking they had struck gold. But that day, I took Kyle home and told them that Bertha was cutting ties with them. I had always been reluctant to do this, caught in internal conflict. It was because they gave me life. More so, I still harbored illusions about them. Hoping for their concern, understanding, affirmation, and love. But my arrival in this world was not something I chose. Since I had come, I was an independent individual. as I was repeatedly hurt by their emotions and tormented by pain. They watched me from a distance, allowing me to drown in that deep sea. Not once did they save me. Since I couldn't obtain it, I might as well let it go. In this world, not everyone gets to experience familial love. Accepting the absence of certain emotions is also a lesson in growth. When I left, my parents stood before me. For the first time, I saw panic on their faces. But it had nothing to do with me anymore. Wedding day. I wore the wedding dress Kyle had prepared, it fit perfectly. I asked him, "How did you know my current size?" He pinched my cheek and said, "Because you definitely didn't eat well while I wasn't around." He was in a sharp suit, having lost the rebelliousness of his youth. Instead, he had gained some maturity and gentleness. He gently hugged me from behind. I looked at our reflection in the mirror, and my eyes reddened slightly. I had waited for this day for too long, far too long. Kyle lifted my chin and kissed the corner of my eye. "My little Pepper, why are you still so prone to tears?" His words made the tears I had been holding back spill over. That day down the mountain, I imagined he would say this to me. But it was just an illusion. Now, the illusion had come true, a second chance. Heaven had been so kind to me. I tilted my face and kissed his brow, because I know someone will wipe my tears, someone will wait for me to watch the spring rain, the summer wind, the autumn leaves, and the winter snow together. So even when I'm occasionally alone, I dare to move forward bravely. Because I am certain that at the end of the cliff, there will be wild winds. And the person I love will be there waiting for me, saying, "Hello, we meet again." END.